and welcome to the Illuminate Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Emmy Birch, and today we are talking to Assaf Gleizner. And Assaf is one of my colleagues, but also writes musical theater and is an owner of an Israeli hummus company. Those things are related, and we're going to talk about why in this episode. It's so much fun to find people to illuminate their stories and share them. And we hope that as you listen, you're entertained, you're inspired, and you know that whatever it is you're doing deserves to be illuminated too. So check us out over on the Instagram, the Illuminate Pod, or you can find us on Facebook or on Patreon. But whatever you need to make sure that we are illuminating stories like yours or not like yours, or ideas that you have, get over there and let us know what you want to hear. But for today, we're talking about Friends, the parody musical, Office, the parody musical, Israeli hummus, and oh so much more. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with my friend Assaf. All right, today we are talking to my friend and colleague, Assaf Gleizner. Hello.
Let's go.
I'm so excited to finally get to talk to you on the podcast. I kind of feel a little selfish about this one because I've been dying to know your musical background ever since you came into my singing for the actor class, like the first week you got hired. And you
Yeah.
just, off the cusp were like, yeah, and I wrote a musical. Like, oh, okay, cool. Like, no big deal.
Yeah, well, wow, where to begin? So I started music when I was 3.5, started playing piano. They discovered that I have perfect pitch when I was about 4 or 5. Uh,
Whoa. Wait, how did they discover that? Because, like, in my next life, I'm going to come back with perfect pitch.
oh yeah, I mean, it's a thing. Is it like the most important thing? I don't know. It's a thing, you know. But according to my mom, when I was 3.5, I picked up a melodica, and for those who don't know what that is, it's like a piano you blow into. Kind of sounds like a mix of an accordion and a harmonica. So I was 3.5. I picked up a melodica, and I played "Happy Birthday" on the melodica. So that was the first sign. And then I don't remember much of my lessons when I was 4 and 5, but I do remember sitting with my back to the piano and naming what pitches my teacher played. Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so perfect pitch early on in life, taking
Yeah.
piano lessons, playing the melodica, then what?
Then, you know, piano wasn't a serious thing for me until I was 14. I was also playing basketball and tennis and blah blah blah. Just shoving me into as many after school things that I can do. But then I there was a performing arts high school that auditioned me, and I was actually not. I wasn't great at school. I think I don't. I was like an undiagnosed neurodivergent, and I got like bored very quickly. It would made me be a little mad very quickly, and wasn't getting along with my teachers, and so I wasn't really that successful at school. And that school came up, and I think that kind of saved my life in a way, because I feel like as soon as it was a high school, and as soon as I got accepted, it kind of made me realize, oh yeah, I'm good at something. I'm more than good at something. Like I always knew that like piano is a thing, but I never, nobody in my family played, none of my friends played. So I was like, I'm the piano man, I'm the piano person. But in the school, it was like a really, really high demanding school. And in fact, all of the teachers are some sort of, academy graduate, whether it's Berkeley School of Music or New School, Manhattan School, some Juilliard. So they all came with these degrees, brought the books back with them, and we were learning those books at school. So I was actually learning ear training 1 and 2. That was the Berkeley College School book. So it was pretty intense. And by that time, there was like a few things that we already had to decide. One, by the end of our year, our first year, we have to decide if this is what we want to do for the rest of our lives. Because if not, we should not be in that school. Um, and the other thing is like knowing that the journey to become a good artist, whether it's a musician like me or with like a theater department or a dance department, is to go abroad and study. So I knew when I was 15 that I will go to New York at some point and get a degree and become a jazz musician. And whether I come back to Israel or not, like it was like pretty obvious that that's my journey.
So all of this was happening in Israel. You went to this fancy school in Israel, and when they said go abroad, they meant like go to the States.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious. And in fact, like some, Berkeley specifically was in great relationship with our school. So every year they would send representative from Berkeley to audition us and to give us a scholarship. So I already got like, I want to say like an $18,000 scholarship when I graduated
Wow.
school. But I didn't know if Boston was for me. I was like, I don't know, New York is where it needs to be. And first I needed to do the army. So I was drafted to the army. I was in the army band, so nothing too
Good.
crazy. Actually, that was my first introduction to music direction because I was music directing a group of four singers, and we would just tour the country. And I would make the playbacks, the harmonies, and all that stuff. And it was actually cool because I was only exposed to jazz in high school to the point where I kind of felt like jazz is the only cool music and everything else. Like,
Hmm.
no,
Yeah.
kids. And
Yeah.
then I would be forced to do all the top 40 Israeli songs at the time. And I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And actually, like, I hear jazz here and I hear this type here, and like I can use my skills to do this. And like, so it really kind of opened me up to all genres of music, and also as a music director, all the other possibilities as a musician that I can be, not just a piano player. Uh,
Wow.
that was a good step in a way. And honestly, like they put a lot of faith in me because I didn't know what music direction even is. And it's like, okay, here are your four singers. Come up with a 90-minute show. It's like, oh no,
Trial by fire.
because I think that's how this works. Like it was just like drop us in, and it's been great because I don't think I'll ever would have been able to be in that position. Definitely not at that age, but even like years later if I didn't have that experience. So finished the army, um, started doing music as a career. So I started playing with like Israeli idols, kind of like the American Idol version in Israel. So I would
Cool.
play with like the pop stars of Israel. And I remember a specific story um, that one of my favorite band was called Machina. It's a band that actually went started in the 80s before I was even born and kept going till like when I was still there in 2000. And I remember seeing my very first show ever seeing was their show at an amphitheater in Caesarea, which is like the original Roman amphitheater that still survived. That was just like was renovated and now have shows in front of like tens of thousands of people, right? So I saw that show and I'm like, okay, I know what the peak of my career is going to be. I'm going to be on that stage one day performing with someone, like playing piano on that stage. So I'm 22 and just left the army, got to play with a great singer called Shiri Maimon. That's her name. She's still doing things, I think, in Israel. Um, and all of a sudden, like, they give us dates and they give us locations and they never tell us where it is. They just say, like, yeah, you have this gig in Haifa here, you get this gig in Tel Aviv here, something in Caesarea in this Saturday. Okay, see you then. And like, I'm just assuming, probably a wedding hall, or like, a private party or like a small venue or whatever. Then I'm in the van and I all of a sudden like realize they're taking us to the MP theater in Caesarea. I'm
Yes.
like, I am on stage and I don't see people, I see dots. I don't see people at all. It was so far away. Like you can't even like tell what this is. And the stage was so huge. I couldn't see the people on the other side. It was that wide. And they spread us all. We're like maybe 5 musicians, right? It's like way over and overkill of a stage. Um, and I'm like playing, and I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome! This is the peak of my career. And I'm like, hold on, I'm 22. This can't
At
be the peak.
22, this is the peak.
This is like all going downhill from here. And I think that's really what sealed the deal for me that Israel felt a little too small, and New York is really the next destination. Um, so I went to New York. I decided to be a black sheep and not follow my teacher's recommendation. Instead of going to any of the like big schools, I went to SUNY Purchase, which
Yeah.
is a school in upstate New York, Westchester. I don't know if you're a New Yorker, I won't call it an upstate New York, but if you're not a New Yorker, then yes, it's upstate New York. Some people will make fun of me when I say that, but anyway, so I am there, and I think one of the biggest attraction was that it was a campus and not like scattered building all over town. And I'm like, oh my god, just like American Pie, I can
Oh my god.
play beer pong and like do other things like an American student. That was actually also turned out to be a very good decision because once you're out of the city, all of a sudden you're not just in New York, you're in New York, in New Jersey, Connecticut, like all of a sudden all these tri-state area, everything seems a little closer and more attainable. And also I feel like there were so many Israelis in the city and so many Israelis specifically in these schools. I even remember, yeah, so many stories. I will get to the funny
These are
one.
so great. Like,
Uh,
this is amazing.
like the first week I was at Sony Purchase, I started already like blending with the musicians and playing with them. And one of them was like the singer whom we'll talk about later because she and I did an album that got nominated for a Grammy. But so her name was Cyril Amy, who's an amazing singer, and she's there, and she's a year. She's a sophomore. I'm still a freshman, and she's like, Assaf, you're so great. I'm going to take you down to the city. I'm going to introduce you to all the cats. Blah blah blah. And he's like, okay, yeah, introduce me to all the cats. So we go on the first weekend of school. We go to a place called Smalls Jazz Club, like the most stereotypical jazz club you can think of, like all smoking in a basement, couches from I don't know the 70s. Like everything is kind of like bought in some sort of estate sale. Like it doesn't feel like and we're there, and I spoke Hebrew the whole night because everyone there was from my high school. Like different years. I was like, oh my god, you again. And she's like, man, you already know everybody. Come on. And I was like, yeah. So there was so many Israelis in the city, and that was another thing that I wanted to not do because I really wanted. I felt like if I will be in the city, I'll probably not learn English fast enough. I'll probably not, integrate quickly enough. I won't feel the true American experience that I can feel if it's a school that is a little less known to my country. And that ended up being right. Like I felt like I was able to meet a lot of new musicians and be open, like be actually exposed to a lot more opportunities than if I just remained in the city. So year two, there was a local children theater that was looking for a music director. And I was like, hey, jazz is fun, but like, let's do other things. And that was my first true musical theater experience. My first show I've ever done was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yes.
And
What an epic first show.
I know it was so much fun, and the kids were so great, and there was so many of them. There were like probably 50 or 60 kids. It's like the place was called Stage Left Children Theater, and it was like the biggest in Nyack, New York, which is across the Hudson River. So it's on the west side of New York.
Mhm.
And yeah, like, and kind of it kicked me in the butt because it was everything from needing to teach all the music the way it needs to be taught, which as a jazz musician, I would always say, like, well, I mean, that's the song, but what do you want to do with it? Like, no, 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 no. There's like characters, notes, and everything, and cutoffs, and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
that's the song. What do you want to do with it? I'm gonna steal that. I mean, that's how it goes, but like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, like someone coming to Steven Schwartz, like, yeah, define gravity, but what if we're like, what if we like do it like, like, no, we'll just, I can't imagine that. So, and then also, then the orchestra is coming, and I need to learn how to reduce because we can't hire all the musicians. B, how to conduct, which I never had to do. It's always like, okay, everybody ready? Let's go, and then we'll find our way through things. So there was a lot of skills that I had to learn, and luckily it was like the best environment to learn it, because if it was anything more higher stakes than this, I would probably never worked in that town again, right? So like there was a lot of learning curve allowed to happen just because it was a children's theater and it was a little more forgiving, and you know um but that's it. I bit the bug pretty much. Like I like after this, like,
So Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was the bug that bit you from jazz?
yeah.
Oh
I
my goodness.
mean, I loved musical theater before. I think I did a couple of, like, I was playing at some pits in Israel, and I played in Aida, and I played in
Mm.
company in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I love the music, obviously, but as a music director, it was such a different experience, that I just fell in love with. And, it felt to me like musical theater was the place that I can just take everything I know in music and
Mm.
express it there. Because it's really like, if I say musical theater song, you and me would probably have two completely different definition of what that
Yeah.
is, and we're both right? Like, it
Yes.
could be like completely jazzy thing, or like a contemporary musical theater, or like an avant-garde, like, it can be whatever we want.
There's so much. Yes.
Amazing. Like,
It
there's
is the best.
it, and all it is, as long as it serves the emotion, as long as it serves what the character is saying or the show, it's good. There's
Mm-hmm.
really no limitation, and I loved that. I feel like that's like an even more freeing expression than playing jazz. But the only problem is that if I play a show that is already written, I missed the boat. I can't do anything about it. They all did all the fun stuff, and now I need to do and play exactly what they wanted me to do. So quickly that got a little old, and
Because you want to do it your way. You want to
because
write
I
your own
like
sounds. Yeah, I'm totally seeing this now.
and I'm like, I was still young, and kind of cocky, and like every time I would do a show, I was like, oh, could have done this so much better. It's like, oh, this, and like, oh, who wrote this harmony? Like, I was like, yeah, I can reinvent the wheel here and make it a square and still make the car ride, right? And so oddly enough, at that point, I started dating Tegan, my wife, and she was still an actress auditioning. Now she's an incredible choral conductor, and
Yes.
she's,
Amazing entrepreneur. We'll have to get her on the podcast
yeah.
too.
I was just gonna say, like, that's a whole
Mm-hmm.
podcast just for her. But back then, she was auditioning, and she saw a playbill ad, for Full House the musical. They were looking for, I forgot her name now. Jesse's girlfriend. What was her name?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I forget. But
Her.
yes.
Uh,
Yes. I can
uh,
visualize it. Cannot bring up the name, but I can
she,
tell you all the
oh,
people and friends.
by the way, too. That was a big thing. Anyway, but her. And I guess to save money on the playbill ad at the bottom there, they also said, oh, and also looking for an arranger composer for the show. Now, I also would look at playbill, but I would never open a casting call for Jesse's girlfriend, and like I wouldn't even bother. I would immediately go to the music director positions, etc. So she applied, and when she applied, she also wrote. Oh, and by the way, my husband, my boyfriend at the time, is a fantastic, composer arranger. Here's his number. She didn't even tell me that she did that. And a one-line email said, "Hi, this is the Full House, the musical team would love to talk to you about the arranging position." And I'm like, "What?" So I tell her the thing. It's like, "Oh yeah, put your name in it." Like, "Oh, okay, whatever." So I came in, and luckily there weren't that many applicants because, again, none of us would ever look there. So um, I got the job, and at first I was just the arranger of Full House the Musical. That's the first thing we've ever done as a team. Um, but very quickly turned into me composing the whole show. So by the next show that we did, which was 90210, I was just the composer. So we did
Cool.
90210. Such a silly show. And both ran at Theater 80, which I think is still there. I don't know. I don't know if it's still in New York, if it's still open. But 90210 actually got um, picked up by a producer that wanted it to be at the Broadway Playhouse in Chicago.
Okay.
And that was wild because we went there for the opening, and there was like Wicked, Hamilton, and 90210. Those were the posters. Like, what? No, 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 no. That has no. Yeah, it was like so. Like, okay, this is such a uh, you were surreal experience,
Those are
but
some big next door neighbors.
yeah, exactly. I was like, what's happening? So we did that. It was just a week run, and it was awesome. And the producers really liked it. And somehow, other producers that they're the one who commissioned Friends the Musical, they heard about 90210, and they approached us and say, "We want to write. We want you all to write Friends the Musical, and we will produce the entire show." Um, and that was kind of like we worked backwards. We had the opening night. We did auditions for the cast. We had all the rehearsals scheduled, and only after that we started writing the show.
Ooh.
So we're like, okay, we have a show that we need to finish and put on in a month. So let's start writing it. You know, um,
Wow, that seems so fast.
it's crazy, and at the same time, it doesn't give you time to doubt yourself. There's just no time. Whatever comes out of your brain, that's what it has to be. Maybe after everything settled down, if we ever want to write a second, we can learn from this mistake. There's no time to like, maybe if we change this, and like, no, like rehearsals tomorrow, we need 2 songs. What do you have? It's like, so the writers would send me lyrics. They send me the song that they were inspired by to write these lyrics. And I needed to write music to it that would sound similar, but far enough so we won't get sued. So it would be like Bare Naked Ladies, or, and actually specifically the Friends musical, they wanted all 90s. Uh,
Yes.
so we would, yeah, so they would just pick their favorite 90s songs, write lyrics that come kind of similar to them. I even remember that it was at first kind of hard writing the show, just because if I would write things on the piano, it would just be a little too complicated for 90s. But I play guitar very poorly. And I'm like, that's it.
Perfect for the 90s.
Yes, I know 4 chords, and that's pretty much the 90s.
The
So
90s on a guitar. Yes. Make sure you tune it down just a little bit to get the grunge in there.
right, exactly. Yeah, there's a little distortion here and there, and yeah, it was actually a pretty successful run. Up until COVID, even like we kept running, and then actually COVID was like, how everybody was saying that 2020 is going to be the year. Like it was like a thing. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, 2020 is gonna be the best year. Literally, like at that point, we already wrote The Office the musical, which we can talk about that a little too. So
Hmm.
we had Friends running in New York, Office running in New York, Friends running in Vegas, and being translated to Mandarin because they wanted to open it in China, about to open in England, and they had the first show in Australia at March 1st of
Ooh,
2020. And that's
then that's
and
it.
shut down. That was the first time I was like, oh my God, I don't have to leave the house and I will get paid and all this like royalties. And then like I didn't leave the house, but I also didn't see anything. It was a big hit for everybody. Um so yeah, so that's kind of like the process for Friends. I mean, there's like so many nuances about it. And honestly, also, yeah, auditioning for shows that we were writing as opposed to existing shows is such an interesting concept, um, because you kind of like you have to put so much trust in your actors because you don't really know what you're looking for. You know what Phoebe isms are, but you don't know, even if there's someone that is great in the audition, you don't know how much they would know it and will be able to adjust to things and how quickly they can learn. Like there's so much unknown that you're like, I hope,
I
and
hope I
then
picked the right person.
yeah, and then the more you um rehearse, the more actually creativity comes from the actors, and sometimes to the point where it's like, yeah, we wrote something, but what you're doing is so much better. We're going to keep this, and that's also incredible, like to have such talented artists in the room because they're all super talented. The fact that I'm the music director or the composer and technically have the last say, yeah, but like instead of just one artist and nine people following, like we have 10 people that can collaborate on this new show together, and that's really, really cool.
That is
So
awesome.
yeah.
I mean, I was so excited to see it, especially because in different circles, like knowing you had written the music and then knowing that someone I went to grad school with was playing Phoebe, I was
Mhm.
so excited to see it. Plus, like, I ironically watched Friends from beginning to end during the pandemic. So that's kind of an irony there. Sorry about that. But it was such a great show. I feel like the jokes hit, that the music was like listenable, singable, but not repetitive.
Mhm.
Um, a random side note, I went and saw Don Juan the musical in Montreal when I was there a couple weeks ago, and it was 100% in French, and I speak zero French, but I had like the whole script so I could try to follow along with the process. The music in Don Juan the musical is fantastic, except there is a formula. Sing a couple lines, modulate. Sing those same lines, modulate. And every
Mhm.
song had that same formula, but then the electricity in all of Montreal went out in the middle of our show, and
Oh, no.
people would start trying to keep the music going within the audience, but they can only handle a couple modulations. And because the whole musical was full of modulations, I have some hilarious videos of the audience trying to sing Don Juan the musical in French with modulations in a black theater.
Oh, that's fun.
But your musical Friends did not have a bajillion modulations, and you could totally like sing along. It was
Mhm.
never repetitive. It was just like perfect for the moment.
Yay. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's we were definitely, I feel like when we're thinking about 90s music, which was also like such a fun project because we grew up in the 90s, so it's much
Hmm.
harder to analyze um culture that was just part of our like what created our identity. Like how do you separate yourself from that and try to come with a more analytical point of view? But really, like I memorized almost all the songs I love from the 90s, and I am terrible at lyrics. Like if I sing songs today, I have no idea like what they are without seeing the lyrics. But something about the 90s was so simple and so basic. They were just like boom, like straight to your heart, which was so. So I really, really tried to recreate that. Like nothing, it's musical theater in a way that it's a character singing as opposed to like a cool hip band that is like with like that's the only thing that I want musical theater to be about that. But other than that, those songs can, if we could, can just stand alone as
Mm-hmm.
songs, and
Yeah.
that's the main, attempt. Also, I will say that there was the first parody that we wrote that we actually had to like treat more delicately, because I feel like when we did Full House the musical and 90210, and also we did another show that we don't really talk about called The Kardashians, which is the Kardashians and cats. Um, so all three shows, or two and a half, I guess, if we don't really include that one as a real one, you look back at Full House and you look back at 90210, and your first reaction is, I can't believe I used to watch these shows, right? It's like so corny, so, like 90210, they're all in their 30s. Like, who are we kidding? Like, none of them are high school kids, right? It's like, and it's adult, like, you realize it's like, oh man, I was such a, I wasn't the brightest kid to really just fall for that. But like, Friends, people really love those characters, and like you must represent them the way everyone
Mm-hmm.
can. You can make fun of them, but you can't make fun of, like, you can't do it as a making fun of the audience that watched it, like the other
Right.
show. So it was a very delicate, like how do we write a love letter but also bring up how ridiculous it all was.
Well,
So that
I
was
think that totally hit. I could see that. And like I would see it again. I mean, I love my friend who plays Phoebe. I would see it again to see Chandler because Chandler's character is hilarious. I want to watch it like two or three more times just to see all those transitions.
Oh, yay. Yay.
It was so good. But okay, so how did The Office come into that? And the other question I have is when did it come back after the pandemic? Because it's still running.
Yes. Actually, The Office was uh got the title the first musical to reopen after COVID. It
Oh,
was the
cool.
first in New York. Um and I was like, again, like, really? There's so much out there. Like, we are like, why isn't Phantom the first one? This is crazy. Like, we don't deserve a title like this. But yeah, I think, part of it was the theater is small, that it's very easy to pick back up, scheduling wise and budget wise and etc. But The Office was actually came from the same producers that helped us with 90210. So after they saw
Mhm.
the success of Friends, they're like, okay, now we want one. So um and that was actually my suggestion. They were torn between The Office and Seinfeld. And they
Oh,
said,
that's
you
such
know,
a tough decision.
I know. And honestly, I felt like Friends and Seinfeld was like two groups. I was a Seinfeld guy, and some of my friends were Friends guy people, and I felt like you either like that one or you liked that one back in the day. So I'm like, I mean, it does make sense after we did Friends to do Seinfeld, but to me, Seinfeld didn't make much of a comeback as Friends did between all the like Netflix reruns and the memes and all the stuff that were going on. So I didn't feel like it was a strong choice, but I loved The Office, and I told them, look, y'all tell me what you want us to write, and I'll follow. But all I'm going to say is that I have a dream of a song in The Office that it's from the scene that someone complains about inappropriate jokes in the office, and Jen comes in and says, "Okay, we can't do any inappropriate jokes anymore. HR is complaining, whatever." And James says, "Does that include?" That's what she said, and she said, "Especially that's what she said." And then he says, "Wow, that's gonna be extremely hard." or like that's gonna leave me, like, it keeps giving all these setups to That's What She Said for Michael. James does, and Michael just can't say it, and then eventually he just like bursts and That's What She Said, and then just loses it, right? And so I wanted to do a song that the whole song is a build up to That's What She Said, and then eventually at the very end of the song, Michael just like runs to another room and yells, "That's what she said," and the song ends. And that sold it. That's what made them do it. I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
oh,
so cool.
The Office. And actually, that's actually going to happen in the show. A variation of that. It's not exactly what I said, but like you'll see. And we wrote The Office, and The Office was even more challenging to write because it's already a parody, right? So it's
Hmm.
already like a mockumentary about The Office and making fun of documentaries like the reality TV. So how do we parody a parody that's already also over the top, right? Like every character, the maximum that they could be. So how can you like accentuate it? And we eventually just decided to just create one long episode of the show that includes all our favorite skits. There does some commentary on it, and also at that point we stepped away from the 90s and actually made it a free for all music. So you'll hear music for all genres. Just we really try to make fun of as many things as we could.
Oh, that
No,
sounds like so much fun.
yeah, and it was such a fun thing, and we realized that for things to land better, I feel especially back then the climate was even more heated than before. We decided that Michael Scott has to be a woman, it has to be a female cast, and with that actually landed very well. That was actually amazing. And we didn't really announce that when we auditioned, and just one, um, Sarah at the time, the person who debuted the role, she auditioned and she was so perfect. It's like, okay, great, thank you. We got Michael Scott covered. We're good. Also, there was another one of those cast everybody, schedule the show, and then write the show, which actually worked so well because the girls that we casted, some of them were double casted. So we had a person for Angela, who was also Ryan. We had a person for Kelly, who also did, I forgot what also she did, but she did a bunch of other characters as well. And then we had an actor for Pam. Um, and Angela was just a comedic, like, her voice didn't really blend, but it was so unique. Um, and we had Kelly, who's a killer gospel riffer singer, just amazing. And we had Pam, who was just classically trained, so really legit, like operatic voice. And there
Oh,
was the
yes.
song in the show. I don't want to spoil it too much because you still haven't seen it, but there's a song in the show called "Paper Cut Heart," where all three girls are complaining about how the partners mistreated them. Um, and I was able to write a song to just really like showcase everyone's ability. And I would have never thought of doing that unless we already casted them.
Right.
And it was just so much fun to know, like, knowing who you're writing for makes everything like so much easier. Also, it kind of commits the role to that part from now on, so we can only hire classically trained Pams, and only hire rippers for Kelly, all that stuff. But
Something I never thought I'd heard in a sentence. A classically
yeah,
trained Pam.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was just so much fun. I don't know. I feel like I'm working now on new shows as well, like writing and trying to stay away from parodies, just because it's fun to write something that is just a little less, first, not on existing material, and be less over the top. um but it does like raises the stakes a lot, and makes things a little more challenging because I feel like parodies give you kind of a free pass of, if it's good, that's great. And if it's bad, no, it's meant to be bad. No, that's on purpose,
It's a
So
parody. Yeah.
yeah, you get this like, you know, really you can't fail in that regard. But now it's like, no, it just all have to be good. Like, which is
So you are working on another project now.
yes, yes.
That's so cool. Okay, well, you have to let us know when that's public knowledge.
Uh-huh. Yes. We're
That's
still
so cool.
there's a workshop kind of thing, kind of like a not a class, but what do you call that? Like a retreat-ish type of thing
Yeah, like a
to
work
design.
through, like a read through.
So we're gonna apply to that and start working with them to like really. Also, we need something to keep us accountable. So if someone's like, every Sunday you're gonna present something new, it's like, okay, I guess we gotta write something now.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
easier.
that's so exciting. Yay! Because that was my follow-up question. Do you miss writing or are you still writing? So it looks like you're still writing, which is
Yeah,
fabulous.
it took a bit. I think, um, much like other artists, I'm sure COVID kind of, shaken everything up. And at first, make me question if music is still something I want to do. So for a second, I opened a hummus company,
Oh
which is,
yeah, wait, we have to acknowledge the fact that you have like do you still have your hummus company?
oh yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah. So like you write musicals, you do jazz and every other type of genre, and you have a hummus company. Can you please tell us that story?
right, yes. So during COVID, um, art died pretty much. Also, it felt that way, and I was not used to not being active. Like, especially in New York, it's like a day that you don't do something is a day that you're like, I don't know, almost feel like you're dying. It's just like, what am I doing? It's like we didn't know what relaxation is or like what self-care means or time for ourselves. So all of a sudden someone's like, oh, by the way, everything stops. We'll let you know when it's time to come back. Like, no, this is not, and Tegan, she started a voice studio at the time, which was amazing because she just transferred everything online. And at that time, there was a lot of like, I'm going to do something for myself. I'm going to study voice. So all of a sudden, she get like this influx of students. It's kind of like a New Year resolution 2.0 for 2020. I was like, I'm going to do something I've never done before. But me, I perform. I don't, and we tried the live stream thing and we tried to like, one time we even went to like a special venue that had all these cameras in and it's like trying to do like a live stream but like much better quality than an iPhone and whatever. Nothing compares to a real audience. Like just, we would do a show and we had all our like routine and jokes and stuff. And you say a joke and you're like, da 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 da. And there's no one in the audience. So like, did it land? Does anyone get it? Like, I don't, you just don't get a response. And it's just so, it feels so lonely. Even if it's like thousands of people are viewing and you feel like, you're alone. So I stopped that and I needed to do something. And I picked up cooking, just like, again, like, so people had their sourdough, I had hummus, right? So like I started really getting into hummus. And hummus is like my favorite thing to eat, and I'm the most picky. So I never dared to make it because I knew I'd hate it. But I'm like, hey, now's the time to try. And I did, and it started getting pretty good. And at that point, we also decided our New York era might come to an end. Our lease was up, and we had a long relationship with Savannah and loved it so much. So we just decided on a whim to like not renew the lease, come to Savannah. And I started making hummus. And one day we were walking down at Forsyth Park, which is the central park of Savannah.
Oh,
Uh,
it's so tiny and it's so cute.
so cute and it's so beautiful, and but it does feel like kind of an oasis in the
Mm-hmm.
city, like in the middle, like, and it was a farmer's market. And we're walking around, and it's like November, and we're like, hey, are you looking for new vendors? And they're like, there's usually a 2-year wait list, but what do you do? And I'm like, I was thinking of doing hummus. Like, hummus? Well, okay, well, look, apply and see what happens. So I apply, and then on December, I get a call saying, oh, we accepted your application. You'll start in January. Okay, bye. I was like, yeah, sure, I can do January.
Cool.
Go to Google. It's like how to start a food business in 4 weeks. Uh, so we find this like shared kitchen up in South Carolina, which is like an hour and a half from us, Walterboro. If anyone doesn't know what it is, look up the Murdoch uh, file. Like it's like that's the biggest thing that came out of there.
Oh
And
no.
about the same time that we were there, so in a way, we were part of this history. Like
Oh my
it's
goodness.
wild story. Let's check it out. But so we're there, and man, we didn't know anything. We didn't know what we were doing, but it took about like 12 hours to make like 30 containers of hummus that we weren't even sure anyone would buy. It's like no one knows us. Maybe 30 is a lot. And then we sold out in 30 minutes. So like by 10 a.m. we were like pack everything back up and we're like, okay, so we need more. So we bought more food processors and went for even longer hours and made 90 containers, and we sold out in an hour. And I was like, okay, well, I guess Savannah really likes hummus. And then already within like a couple of months, I had like several employees and different flavors. And last year, no, 2 years ago, I opened a storefront and a kitchen on my own. And now I literally just yesterday, I hired an operation manager to just go ahead
Whoa.
because I'm at SCAD now. So
Yes.
I have another full-time job because music came back. Yeah, so that's still going, and that's a nice outlet as well, because it's just a new audience, and it is literally an audience. Like I know they come for the hummus, but I force upon them all my puns and stupid dad jokes, and I'm very happy that I have new crowd to do that because Tegan is a little tired of that. So,
No, but the hummus is so good. The hummus is so good because it's at Brighter Day, my little grocery store,
hmm
and
yeah.
that's where I found it because we had gotten it before we knew it was y'all making it,
Oh, really?
and then Tegan told me the story. I'm like, hold on, wait a second, that's y'all. That's so cool.
It is. It's kind of crazy. You know, like I think the concept of people waking up on a Saturday, taking money out of their wallet to buy something that I've made and put that in their fridge and eat with their friends is mind blowing to me. Like I will never get over it. And like I have those labels that and barcodes and UPC codes and all this stuff that all the other retail companies have, and I'm on a shelf, and like people walk with the groceries and buy veggies, buy crackers, and buy whatever, and it's like it's crazy. Like I never thought that that's a thing. Like I never even thought about this until I started making it. And it's like every single product on a shelf had that process. Like they just a person, two people, whatever, just like came up with an idea, worked extremely hard to put it on there. Every one of those have this unique story. It's kind of amazing if you think about it like that,
Hmm.
So
But
that got
isn't that the truth with like musicals? Like of all the musicals out there, we can go see Friends and The Office still currently.
yeah.
And you could like go a couple more steps down, and there's a couple other theaters right around the corner from where you enter to see Friends and The Office.
hmm
But they chose to go see Friends or The Office. It's like such a
yeah.
cool parallel.
Yeah, no, it is. It's amazing. Like I think, as a freelancer, which I guess you could also appreciate it as an employee of a company because they kind of do the same thing. But like as a freelancer, just because you have so many people that you're dealing with, every single person that hires you had to make that decision, and no matter where they are in life, spending money on something is a really big commitment and really like a an in-depth decision, no matter how small, and they chose you. And that's amazing. Like that thought of like, so many people out there and someone trusting you to do the job that they want you to do in the best way they can think of. That's like incredible.
That's such a cool, like, such a great way to think about it. Oh, I'm so happy to have finally heard your story and to get to share and illuminate this story. Um, to finish up the
Yeah.
episode, the recording, what is something that you really want to shine light on, like something that really matters that you want the listener to walk away from this awesome story and this really fun conversation?
Well, I think what I've learned over the years, at least with my experience, is that I tend to overly romanticize my idols. So for up until I do something, I'm sure that the only people who do that are the most, you know, talented, amazing, perfect, zero vulnerability. They just like everything they do is perfect. They started perfect, it ended perfect with no doubts. Um, and I always realize that that's never the case. And it can feel so far from you when you compare your beginning of a journey to someone's end journey.
Mm.
Um, and I just want to say if anyone is doubting themselves about starting something because they see how great other people are doing or like how great their idols are doing, they all sucked at some point. All of them. All of them really did a bad job when they started. And that is very comforting to know, at least to me. I also, I don't know if that's, you can cut
No,
that if you want.
I think that's so
I,
important. That
but
insecurity, that imposter syndrome.
yeah, I sit with a couple of students at SCAD who are my assistant music directors at Little Shop, and I don't know if that's the most appropriate story. So you can you decide. But we're sitting there, and I was talking about Stephen Sondheim because I got to meet him and talk to him, and for the album that we did, and one of them was like, I can't imagine myself being able to have a conversation with Stephen Sondheim. He's so incredible, like so talented. How can I, And I said, you know what? Before I meet someone that I completely, utterly respect and kind of intimidated by, I always remind myself that they also make stinky poop. And if they go to the and I follow them, it will be stinky because they just made a stinky poop. And that's it. Like that humanizes them in so quickly to me. I'm like, okay, no,
So now we can just have a conversation. I
yeah.
love it. That is so good.
And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Everyone makes stinky poop. Like, yes, don't take that literal, like don't follow, but yeah, so
That's so good. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for the fun ending and thank you for
of
sharing your
course.
story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know you wanted 30 minutes, it's now an hour, but I didn't even notice at the time went by. It was
No,
amazing.
it was such an easy combo. Thank you so much.
Yay! And I'll see you in school.
All right, friends. How do you feel about talking to those people that sometimes intimidate you? That last little moment from Asaf makes me smile. I hope you know that whatever you're doing awesome things. And we are so excited that you are listening to the Illuminate podcast. We'll see you next time.